Ooh. It's horse beef here. What's going on? And I just recently came across a video of Alexander Volkanovski and Dan Hooker breaking down Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway coming up this weekend, and I could not help but feel like their breakdown was completely fueled by bias and bitterness and vitriol. You know what I mean? It just didn't seem like two fighters legitimately breaking down the fight. It seemed like they were almost purposefully downplaying Ilia's skill set and overplaying Max's skill set. It almost seemed deliberate. It's either that or it's just sheer ignorance from the both of them, which doesn't make sense to me considering that Dan Hooker's been a part of Volkanovski's team while preparing for Ilia Topuria and Max Holloway. And of course, Volkanovski has fought Ilia and Max Holloway. But that is besides the point. And really all I want to do is go through this breakdown of theirs and break down their breakdown. So let's get into it.
What's happening, guys? Alexander the Great Volkanovski here with Dan the Hangman Hooker, and we're going to talk about UFC 308 in Abu Dhabi. Two past opponents, obviously the champion Ilia Topuria, who took the belt off me in February this year. Can we get visuals on that, please? Because I'd love to see it. I'm sure you want to see it. Obviously, I could have done things better, but you make a mistake in front of a man like Topuria, this is what can happen. I haven't seen that for a while, so I got to see that in front of you. What do you think of Ilia Topuria?
I think you've pissed off someone upstairs, brother.
Now, first, I do want to give credit to Volkanovski for that moment. He's just such a likable, relatable dude. To take losses in that fashion reminds me a lot of Wonder Boy, and just shows why he's one of the most loved fighters on the roster, really.
But now, like, super talented boxer. I just feel like, in my opinion, Max has more tools in the toolkit, and we could see that in his last opponent when he fought Justin Gaethje. Like a very similar opponent to Topuria, very heavy-handed, boxing, orthodox fighter predominantly, and Max was able to just spinning kicks, high kicks, and was able to really shut him down and take a lot of that power away from him.
Yeah, he's a decent boxer. It just completely writes off the fact that Topuria is probably the best boxer in the UFC other than Peter Yan probably. But as far as most powerful punchers in the UFC, pound for pound, just relative to the weight class they're fighting in, he's one of the hardest hitters in the game. And just to dismiss his boxing ability like that is so weird. And to compare Ilia that closely to Justin Gaethje, as if there's any similarities in the way that they fight, makes no sense. Justin Gaethje is a slugger, right? He is almost like a street fight brawler, but with some technique to go along with it. Ilia Topuria has a Greco-Roman background, which they'll get into, and they'll dismiss that too, believe me, with a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, like a legitimate Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, not one like an Alex Pereira BJJ black belt, and happens to have picked up boxing lastly throughout his whole arsenal, right? It's the boxing that came last, and it's become the most effective part of his game and led to him knocking out fucking Volkanovski, right? And putting clinics on guys like Josh Emmett. It makes no sense to me, no sense whatsoever, how you can even compare Ilia Topuria. Why? Because to Justin Gaethje, because they're two powerful punchers. They're known to be the hardest hitters in their divisions, so they're similar. Therefore, that's just a brain dead breakdown there, CTE ridden breakdown from Dan Hooker.
Angles, working his angles more. He's not just, I'll eat some and I'll just throw more, you know what I mean? I'll give more than I'll take. He was sort of like that. That's sort of how he was, where now he's very hard to hit. And I think that's what's going to be tough for Topuria, in the sense that Topuria, you know, he wants to find that perfect position to throw hands. I just think it might be hard to find that spot with Max.
So now we're meant to believe that Max Holloway is very hard to hit, just based off the Justin Gaethje fight alone? Really, that's your one example? I mean, yes, Max Holloway fought that fight beautifully, but it was extremely, I want to say convenient, although the credit has to be given to Max Holloway for landing that spinning back kick. And I know you guys know what I'm going to say next, right? The last second of the first round to land a spinning back kick perfectly like that on the nose and shattering the nose of Justin Gaethje clearly made him very tentative to go forward for the remainder of the fight. Without the broken nose, I believe that fight would have been a lot more competitive. I still think Max would have won, as I picked him to win the fight and didn't predict a fucking nose break in the first round, right? So obviously I thought Max was going to win, but I feel like each round would have been more closely matched with Justin Gaethje able to let his hands go, but he was clearly very hesitant because of the damage done to the nose. Plus, there were some eye pokes in there as well. I don't know. I feel like circumstances were against Justin Gaethje in that fight. So I feel like to base this assessment off of that fight is dishonest, seeing as Max Holloway has absorbed the record amount of strikes to the head out of any UFC fighter ever. So to say that he's hard to hit, it's just not the truth.
And again, Max, even if he does land big on Max, that granite chin, trust me, I've tried cracking that damn thing many times. And it's a granite chin, mate. It's got to be pound for pound one of the best chins we've ever seen.
Now, I'm sure we can all agree on that, right? Max Holloway, even in my perfect MMA fighter video where I crafted the perfect MMA fighter based off certain fighters' attributes, I had Max Holloway's chin in there because it is probably the greatest chin of all time, considering what I said before, that he holds the record for most strikes landed to the head or absorbed to the head, and has never been officially knocked down, is just a testament to how crazy his chin actually is. Like I've seen Max Holloway eat bombs, but on the flip side of that, Volkanovski, you may have tried, but you don't punch anything like Ilia Topuria.
Well, with Ilia Topuria, again, he's a heavy puncher. He does have good grappling and that as well. I think he used to be a Greco-Roman, but I think Max's takedown defense is going to be too much if he tries to take it there. I don't think he's going to have any success.
He's a heavy puncher, and yeah, good grappling, Greco-Roman, I don't know, whatever the fuck.
Like, what the fuck? How could you be so dismissive of his grappling? He is an elite grappler. He is a genuinely fantastic grappler. He might be one of, if not the best grappler at 145. He's just an elite fighter. To say, hey, power puncher, and boil his style down to being a powerful puncher with good grappling. No, he's an elite grappler with fucking a legitimate Greco-Roman background and legitimate boxing. Better boxing, fundamentally, than Max Holloway's. It's just so weird to hear two professional fighters downplay the skill level of Ilia Topuria. Is it because he knocked out Alex and they're both bitter about it? I'm not sure, but honestly, in a way, it kind of seems like it. I don't want to think that way about these two, right? I don't want to believe it, but we've seen bitterness come from Dan Hooker in the past, and Alexander Volkanovski, as likable and as cool as the guy is, I feel like he's been a little bit bitter towards Ilia Topuria since that knockout, I must say.
Yeah, I just think Max is too versatile. I feel like the momentum he's kind of carrying is second to none. Not saying Ilia's not. I think Max gets it done.
So you brush off the Greco-Roman background of Ilia Topuria. You boil him down to just being a powerful puncher, right? He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and you have the audacity to say that Max Holloway is more versatile. What have I just heard? What have I just heard? Max Holloway is a striker. Yes, we've seen him shoot for takedowns, right? He shot and landed takedowns against Yair Rodriguez, right? Because Yair was having a lot of success on the feet. Right, so we saw grappler Max. Do you think Max is actually going to shoot successfully on Ilia? He knows he's outmatched in the grappling department, so he'd be honestly quite dumb to shoot on Ilia because Ilia could easily catch him in some kind of a guillotine and or darce. So that's not happening. So when you say he's more versatile, you have to be just referring to on the feet. But in MMA, having a more versatile tool belt on the feet does not make you the more versatile fighter. When MMA is all-encompassing, and Ilia Topuria is an all-encompassing fighter who's able to do everything at an elite level. So it's just very dishonest to say that Max Holloway is more versatile. Yes, on the feet 100%, right? He throws high kicks, which Ilia does not. He throws body kicks, which I don't even think Ilia has before. Pretty much his kicks are reserved only for calf kicks, exclusively. And of course, Max has displayed effective elbows and knees, right? So on the feet, yes, you can definitely make the case that Max is more versatile, but this is not a kickboxing match. So to say that he's more versatile in MMA, it just makes no sense and is just flat out wrong.
What do you think of the tools for Ilia to win then? You reckon the grappling?
So he's really going to have to, I feel like he's going to have to show a new feather in his cap, and it's just a part of his game that we haven't seen before. I think just that same kind of waiting for the perfect shot boxing, pressuring in is not the style to beat Max. I feel like Max, he's so versatile, and he just does add new feathers into his cap every single time we see him fight.
What? Ilia fought that way against Volkanovski because that was clearly the correct game plan to beat Volkanovski. To act like that's what Ilia's done for his entire career in the UFC is just not true whatsoever. Yes, he did that against Bryce Mitchell to an extent, but against Josh Emmett, because Josh Emmett was such a good, powerful puncher, he stayed on the back foot at times and countered shoulder-rolled shots and displayed beautiful defensive counter striking. Ilia Topuria is anything but just a simple forward pressuring power puncher, and to boil down his style to that is, like I've said before in this video, just sheer ignorance or an attempt to downplay Ilia's skills deliberately.
The spinning kick, which he repeatedly used to shut down a lot of Gaethje's. When Gaethje would try to go and pressure forward, man, that spinning kick just kept coming out of nowhere and was able to, putting it right on the liver. So Gaethje kept, and he didn't want to throw hard, powerful shots. So I feel like Holloway can use the same game plan he used against Gaethje. I feel like Ilia is going to have to show us something new.
As if there's anything new that Ilia really has to show us in the first place. So, I don't know, incoherent from Dan Hooker. But on the point of Max Holloway's spinning back kicks, yes, he used that so effectively against Justin Gaethje, but he wasn't throwing them to the liver, and I don't even think he landed a single one to the liver of Dan Hooker. So again, just weird observations made. It seems like, honestly, he didn't even watch the fight, or maybe he just doesn't remember the fight. That's a possibility as well. But Max Holloway was doing with the spinning back kick what Dustin Poirier was doing or attempting to do against Gaethje in their second fight, except with the round kick where he's throwing it slightly higher, maybe to around the chest region, expecting Justin Gaethje to lean forward and collapse his body in to defend, which is honestly one of the biggest holes in Justin Gaethje's game, which Poirier was exploiting effectively before being knocked out, and Max Holloway went on to exploit extremely effectively with his spinning back kicks. And Max will have to watch out, how often he throws those, because if he gets too predictable with them and Ilia can time a little sidestep and take the back, he may be able to choke out Max Holloway. So this is exactly what I mean when I say comparing him to Justin Gaethje and basing your prediction on this fight based off what Max Holloway did to Justin Gaethje is the wrong way about it, because they could not be more different as fighters other than the fact that they both punch hard.
Ilia Topuria actually mentioned to Max, or said to him, goes, point to the ground, let's go, let's do this, point to the ground. I think that's more of a strategy in a sense where he ain't doing that to, shoot on him or anything like that. I think he knows, I need to get hands on him. He probably knows that he could be in for a rough night. No, he knows it's not going to be easy. So he would love for Max to just sit there, point at the ground, and then just swing like this. I think Ilia Topuria thinks this is where he could definitely catch him. We would love to be in that. So I know he's mentioned that. But even Max goes, I think that's the only way you think you can beat me, so it ain't going to happen.
Yeah, I feel like that's Max taking a huge risk as well. That's why, and that was for the BMF. I feel like that's an entirely different situation. It's a fight he was winning, and he threw it to the ground, and he took an absolute risk.
And now to end on this, I feel like this is an over-analysis of Ilia Topuria's words, which it seems like a lot of people are doing, man. I feel like a lot of people are taking Ilia too seriously and don't realize that he is trolling a lot of the time, and he says what he knows people want to hear. So you know what, man? The whole thing about him pointing to the ground and saying, I want you to point to the ground, to put so much stock in that it's just kind of a waste of energy. It doesn't really make much sense to do it. Of course he's going to say that, right? Because he wants to beat people at their own game, and he enjoys doing that. And I believe he's said that in the past. So to say that he's going to point to the ground it's obviously due to the fact that he's fighting Max Holloway, and he hopes that there's a point in that fight where Max does point to the ground and they can exchange, and he wants to beat him in that area because that's where Max has had a lot of success in his career, and he's known for that, and it's iconic. It has led to one of the most iconic moments in combat sports history. So of course Ilia is going to say that he wants to be involved in that sort of exchange with Max Holloway. I don't think he's reliant on it or thinks, man, I'm not going to be able to hit this guy who's absorbed the record amount of strikes to the head in the history of the UFC. I can't hit him in the middle of the octagon, so I'm going to have to bait him into an exchange. No, right? Ilia is more than capable of catching Max without that moment. You know that. He knows that. Max knows that. So this analysis here, this point of the analysis, this part of the analysis makes no sense to me, just like a good majority of it does. There were some good points though here, and most of the blame for this weird bitter breakdown isn't really on Volkanovski, because I feel like he was being a lot more fair throughout it than Dan Hooker. But Dan Hooker, with either sheer delusion, ignorance, or bias, maybe a bit of of all of it, really. But at the end of the day, I don't really care. I just wanted to break it down because I did think that there were some good points to make here, and I did have a bit of a problem with the way they broke the fight down. Although at the end of the day, who really gives a shit? The fight will take place, and both men will prove who is right and who is wrong. And that does conclude my thoughts on this particular breakdown. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of it and any other future topics. If you have anything in mind that you'd like me to cover, feel free to let me know in the comment section below and I will add it to the list. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next one.